Okay, let's dive right into this highly requested explainer. Today, we're going to definitively bust the disposable EV battery myth, and we're using hard, real-world data to do it. We know your time is super valuable, so we're skipping the fluff altogether. Our goal today is to give you a highly efficient, data-driven look at exactly how long electric vehicle batteries actually last and separate the fact from the fiction. By the end of this explainer, you're going to have a clear scientific understanding of battery degradation. You're going to learn exactly what you need to know without wasting a single minute. Let's get into it.
Because, let's be real, this is the absolute #1 question on everyone's mind when considering an electric vehicle. There's this persistent fear out there that after just a few years of driving, your EV will basically turn into a short-distance commuter car, or worse, a giant paperweight that needs a notoriously expensive battery replacement, right? So, let's skip the rumors and look directly at what over 1 billion miles of real-world telematics data actually tells us about modern battery longevity. And wow, a single, incredibly powerful number really stands out in that data. Modern 2023 EV models are still delivering a massive 91% of their original battery capacity even after driving 150,000 miles. To put that in perspective, older models from around 2012 only retained about 81% of their range at that exact same mileage. So this right here proves that high mileage alone is just no longer a reason to fear severe range loss. And because of these massive engineering advancements, actual battery failures have become incredibly rare. I mean, if we look back at early mass-market models, think the original first-generation Nissan Leaf or the Volkswagen e-Golf, battery replacement rates hovered around 8.5%. But today, for vehicles built since 2022, that replacement rate has absolutely plummeted down to a microscopic 0.3%. The risk of a massive, out-of-pocket battery replacement is literally becoming a thing of the past.
So, looking at the numbers over time, it's pretty clear that the whole range anxiety thing is getting completely outdated. On average, a modern EV retains 97% of its range after 3 years of use and 95% after 5 years. What does that actually mean for you? Well, if you start with an electric vehicle boasting 500 kilometers of range, you'll still confidently have about 460 kilometers of range a full 5 years later. It's a totally negligible drop for the vast majority of our daily driving needs.
Which brings us to our first main topic, time versus mileage accumulation. What is it that actually degrades a battery over its expected 15 to 20-year lifespan? Is it simply calendar aging, just the natural passage of time? Or is it the mileage accumulation, the actual wear and tear of getting out there and driving the car?
Well, to answer that exact question, Environment and Climate Change Canada designed this absolutely brilliant investigation. They took two identical, 8-year-old battery electric vehicles and tested them side by side on a highly controlled chassis dynamometer. They did this specifically to separate the effects of time versus miles. One vehicle had barely been driven at all, while the other had been driven extensively.
And this clinical data is just fascinating. The low-mileage vehicle, which was nearly 8 years old but had under 14,000 kilometers on the odometer, showed an 8% capacity fade simply from calendar aging, just from sitting around. Now, the high-mileage vehicle, which was the exact same age but had over 166,000 kilometers on the clock, showed a 19.9% capacity fade. So what does this reveal? It shows that 8 years of just sitting accounts for roughly an 8% drop, but adding an absolutely massive 160,000 extra kilometers of actual driving, that only added about 12% of extra degradation to the battery.
But here's perhaps the most shocking finding from that whole laboratory test. Despite the massive difference in mileage between those two cars, the physical drivetrain components showed zero extra degradation. None. The actual energy required to move the wheels over the testing cycles was essentially identical between the two cars. It just goes to show that these electric motors and drivetrains are incredibly robust. Moving on to our next topic, the secrets to long battery life. Let's peel back the curtain on the tech for a second to see exactly how EVs manage to last so long compared to traditional vehicles, and how manufacturers are actually pulling off these remarkably resilient lifespans.
Okay, so the secret weapon here is the Battery Management System, or the BMS. You can think of the BMS as the intelligent brain of the whole operation. It actively shields the battery from extreme heat or extreme cold using liquid thermal management. Plus, a lot of manufacturers build in a buffer, basically a hidden reserve of battery capacity that you can't even access when the car is brand new. Then, over time, as the battery's chemistry naturally wears down, the BMS slowly unlocks this hidden reserve. It effectively hides the capacity loss from the driver. It's pretty genius, right?
And when we compare this to traditional internal combustion engines, the contrast is just stark. A thermal engine violently degrades its mechanical components through constant friction, combustion heat, and literally hundreds of moving parts. An electric motor, on the other hand, is virtually eternal. Why? Because it utilizes solid-state electronics and has only one primary moving part. Those power electronics just don't wear out with miles the way a piston ring or a timing belt does.
On top of all that, we're seeing massive hardware leaps across the entire industry. We now have highly stable LFP, that's lithium iron phosphate battery chemistries, being used in a lot of modern, affordable models. These LFP batteries are incredibly robust. They can easily survive thousands of charge cycles and last well over 15 to 20 years. Combine that rock-solid chemistry with efficient cell-to-pack designs and over-the-air software updates that constantly optimize battery algorithms as the vehicle ages, and you've got a machine that's truly built for the long haul.
All right, let's jump into our next topic, maximizing your driving range. Let's look at how your own daily habits can actively protect your battery's health and squeeze every last drop of efficiency out of your daily commute. So, to avoid stressing the battery chemistry, your absolute best strategy is treating your car a lot like you treat your smartphone. For your typical daily driving, try to keep the charge level between 20% and 80%. Now, charging to 100% occasionally for a long road trip, that's perfectly fine, but doing it every single day will definitely wear down the cells faster. You'll also want to limit your use of rapid DC fast charging. Try to reserve those chargers mostly for longer journeys because the intense heat generated during super fast charging can definitely accelerate battery wear over time. You can also directly impact your real-world range with just a few simple daily adjustments. In the city, maximize your regenerative braking to recapture kinetic energy straight back into the battery. Out on the highway, maintaining moderate speeds drastically reduces aerodynamic drag. Always keep your tires properly inflated, because underinflation increases rolling resistance and can actually cut your range by 5 to 10%. And here's a great pro tip for cold weather. Preheat your cabin and your seats while the car is still plugged into the grid. This saves your actual battery's energy strictly for the drive.
Which leads us to our final section, a generational leap forward. Let's step back for a minute and look at the future of automotive technology and what this whole transition really represents for the automotive world. The harsh reality of traditional gasoline engines is that they are inherently, fundamentally inefficient. They waste a staggering 80% of the energy stored in their fuel simply as heat and noise. Think about that. Only about 20% actually makes it to the wheels. Electric vehicles, conversely, are absolute masterpieces of efficiency. They convert roughly 90% of their electrical energy directly into moving the vehicle forward. It's really night and day.
As highlighted by our European source materials, continuing to choose an internal combustion engine as we approach 2026 is truly a paleontological choice. We are literally witnessing a complete generational leap in technology here. It's the modern equivalent of choosing to work on a heavy mechanical typewriter when ultra-fast computers are readily available. The leap in solid-state reliability and thermodynamic efficiency really is just that massive.
Ultimately, it really makes you think, doesn't it? If you're someone who loves the roar of a gas engine, it might be time to realize that that roar is really just the sound of your wallet emptying, as 80% of the fuel you paid for burns away as wasted heat. I really hope this explainer leaves you wondering if clinging to the past is costing you the future. And hey, I sincerely thank you for giving us your time and learning with us today. We love sharing this kind of structured, no-nonsense data with focused learners like you. Thanks so much for joining us to explore these fascinating facts, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.